If you're at all interested in the Scion FR-S, you've been paying attention to its deep ties within rear-wheel drive Toyotas of decades gone by. The truth of the matter is that this vehicle almost owes its current existence to a car that has no history or heritage whatsoever, that Hyundai Genesis Coupe. Right now, AutoGuide.com's editor-in-chief Colin Wood will go up against race car driver Dave Pratt. It's all about agility, balance, and lightweight versus turbo, high-grip tires, and of course, brute force. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it.
Powering the Scion FR-S is a 2-liter 4-cylinder boxer engine sourced from Subaru. Now, it's been mated with a direct injection system from Toyota, and the result is 200 horsepower at 7,000 RPM, and it also makes 151 foot-pounds of torque at a lofty 6,600 RPM. Now, the car is, of course, rear-wheel drive and comes standard with a limited slip differential, and you can get it with either a 6-speed manual or automatic. And let's not forget one of the most important stats, the weight, at just 2,758 pounds.
And this is the Hyundai Genesis 2.0T R-Spec, which explains the racing suit. Under its hood is a 2-liter turbocharged engine making 274 horsepower at 6,000 RPM and a whopping 275 pound-feet of torque at just 2,000 RPM. Obviously, it's a 6-speed transmission, rear-wheel drive, limited slip differential, and the R-Spec also comes with a track-tuned suspension, big Brembo brakes, and some sticky summer tires. And despite being a 4-cylinder coupe, it weighs a pretty hefty 3,350 odd pounds.
Along with having the weight advantage, the FR-S also has an advantage when it comes to the vehicle's weight balance. It's a 53 to 47 front to rear, and that compares to the Genesis Coupe at a 55-45.
That's true, the Genesis is the heavier car, but it's also the quicker car from 0 to 60 and has a superior power to weight ratio.
I have to admit, Dave, the Genesis Coupe does have a much nicer interior with a much more premium feel to it.
It's true, and the Scion, by contrast, despite having really nice seats and a cool little steering wheel, has pretty cheap plastics, no cover on the center armrest, and the gauges look like they're from about a 1995 Subaru.
As for styling, I'm really torn when it comes to choosing between the two cars. I like the FR-S, although the Genesis Coupe just looks really hot with that new front end, although those fake air vents on the hood are a little bit tacky.
Yeah, they might be a bit cheesy. Speaking of cheesy though, the Scion wheels to me look undersized on the car, and the styling is a little too, I don't know, tunerish, I guess you'd say. The sheet metal though I really like. There's some great character lines in it. In person it really pops a lot more than it does in pictures.
Here I am defending the Genesis Coupe again, but I love that from a cost of ownership perspective, you can actually run the car on regular fuel, whereas the FR-S requires premium.
That's true, and in the Genesis you can also get a V6, which would make this comparison no contest.
In terms of who's faster, we'll see, but the Scion FR-S certainly delivers more in the fun-to-drive department. Now, the official stats might say that it makes 151 foot-pounds of torque at 6,600 RPM, which is very high, but it feels much better. I mean, this direct injection NA engine has just great power out of all the corners. It feels really good. I mean, it's obviously no rocket ship, but what a great amount of flat torque all the time. With this tiny steering wheel in your hands, the car is just spectacular. You can really get the most out of it with that lightweight package and this car's amazing balance. It's like you're doing surgery on the racetrack. Comparing it head-to-head with the Genesis Coupe, I'm even more impressed with the Scion FR-S. I mean, from everything right down to the shift knob and the shifter and how well it feels to just how lightweight the car is overall. I mean, you do have to sustain a lot more speeds through the corners, and the car sort of requires more skill and more confidence to be fast. Well, we're yet to see on what the official lap times will say between these two cars, but when it comes to driving joy, there really is no comparison.
First impressions of the Genesis 2.0T R-Spec is that it makes really good power. I mean, there's no denying 274 horsepower, does help accelerate this coupe down the straightaways. The downside is that being a turbo engine, it's pretty peaky on power, so it's got a relatively narrow power band. Blasting down the front straight here, you really get to feel the power of this engine, but on the downside, the brakes really fade pretty quick. We're not sure if we're having a brake problem with this particular car, but after one or maybe two flying laps, we were getting near terminal brake fade. It's not a make or break issue with the car, but it's a bit surprising to get an R-Spec model with brake fade after a lap or two. In terms of handling dynamics, I'm a little bit surprised by how much understeer the car has. It may be a fact of just putting too much temperature into these front tires around some of the tight turns, but it definitely wants to understeer off the line pretty aggressively if you attack the corner. You can get it to rotate a little bit with the throttle, but the car's tendency is definitely toward understeer. The transmission, though smooth shifting, is a little bit vague feeling. I feel like when going from second to third gear, sometimes I don't have absolute confidence that it's going into the gate. In the braking zones, you definitely feel the weight of the car too.
All right, we've had a chance to look at the specs, the interior and exterior styling, as well as speed on the Scion FR-S and the Hyundai Genesis Coupe. Both Colin and Dave have given their expert opinions and driving impressions, but the big question is, which car is faster on the track?
So Dave, you've just done some timed laps here at the track, but before we get to the numbers, which car do you think is faster?
Well, on paper, I would have said the Genesis was going to take it hands down. It's got a big horsepower advantage, and it should have a big braking advantage with those big Brembos on there. So on paper, in my mind at least, it was really going to be no contest.
So now for the big reveal, Dave, you've done the time lapse. Which car is fastest?
The Genesis was in fact the faster of the two cars at a 1:25.0, but the Scion was remarkably close at a 1:26.2. And I think the Genesis really got it done primarily on horsepower, but also the grip of those summer tires really helped a lot.
But lap times aren't the only important numbers here. We got to talk about dollars and cents. Now, the Scion FR-S is a serious bargain at just $24,200.
True, but the Genesis is only $50 more.
Okay, maybe a regular Genesis Coupe is, but this is the R-Spec, and it actually costs about $2,000 more than the FR-S, so you really got to factor that into the equation. Getting out of one car and getting in the other and really comparing them against each other on the same track on the same day, I'm just not convinced that the faster car here is the better car.
Well, I don't think there's any disputing that the Genesis is actually a more comfortable street car, and you can't argue with the fact that it does turn a much quicker lap time.
But I think we both agree that the FR-S is just a lot more fun to drive.